We gaze at the sky, obsessed with the idea of conquering space. We spend billions sending telescopes to the far reaches of the universe and dream of finding extraterrestrial intelligence. But what if the greatest mysteries and most monstrous discoveries don't await us above, but below, beneath our feet? In the abyss we ourselves are trying to drill, to peer into the heart of the planet. In 1989, according to rumors, Soviet scientists on the Kola Peninsula lowered an ultra-sensitive microphone into the deepest well in human history. And what they recorded made them halt drilling in horror and forever seal the entrance to hell. 17 seconds of a pure, inhuman, polyphonic scream emanating from a depth of 12 kilometers. Before we dive into the main content, could we ask for a small favor? A like and your subscription would mean the world to us. Thank you so much. The recording, known as The Sounds of Hell, has circulated online for decades, sparking debate, terror, and ridicule. Fake? A hoax? Or chilling proof that we've awakened something that should have lain dormant forever? This investigation is a journey into the Earth's deepest holes, both man-made and natural. And each one is a portal to the geological past, to a world of forgotten civilizations, and perhaps to our deepest fears. What do we really find at the bottom, and why is it best never to unearth some holes? Let's begin our countdown in a place that defies the very logic of architecture, a place that looks more like an Escher engraving than an actual structure. We're in Rajasthan, India. In the arid, sun-scorched land where water is life, a marvel was created in the 9th century CE. It's Chand Bahori, the deepest and most complex step well in the world. When you stand on its edge, you're left breathless. It's not just a hole, it's an inverted pyramid that plunges 30 meters into the earth, the height of a 10-story building. Its walls are a perfect and hypnotic symmetry of 3,500 narrow steps, intertwined across 13 levels. They create an optical illusion, a labyrinth in which it's easy to lose your way. It seems as if these stairs lead directly to an underground kingdom. Built by King Chanda of the Nikumba dynasty, this well was not just a source of water, it was a social and religious center. During the monsoon season, it became a gigantic reservoir that collected the precious moisture. And in the dry months, when the water level dropped to the bottom, the coolness that reigned in the depths made it an ideal place for gatherings and rest. The temperature at the bottom of the well is 5 to 6 degrees lower than at the surface, a natural air conditioner in the heart of the desert. People descended these stairs to collect water, socialize, and escape the scorching heat. But Chand Bahori is not just an engineering marvel. It's a place shrouded in legend. One tells of how the well was built in a single night by genies, supernatural beings. Another claims its steps are enchanted. If you go down a step, it's impossible to climb back up the same one. Locals believe spirits dwell at the bottom of the well, and they still bring offerings there today. But this beauty has a dark side. The narrow, steep steps without handrails made descending and ascending, especially with heavy water jugs, extremely dangerous. Dozens, if not hundreds, of people fell in over the well's 1,000-year history, meeting their deaths in its murky, greenish waters. Chand Bahori is a monument not only to human ingenuity, but also to human frailty. It ranks 10th on our list because it is the most beautiful and treacherous man-made hole on Earth. It is a place where architecture meets mysticism and life meets death, and gazing into its hypnotic depths, one begins to understand why our ancestors both feared and longed to peer beneath the Earth's surface. From the scorching land of Rajasthan, we move to the cool blue of the Caribbean Sea. 70 kilometers off the coast of Belize, in the heart of the Lighthouse Reef Atoll, the ocean suddenly changes color. The shallow turquoise surface abruptly ends, replaced by a perfect circle of dark, almost black blue. This is the Great Blue Hole, a gigantic underwater sinkhole so enormous and so perfectly shaped, it looks as if someone shot the planet with a colossal rifle. Its diameter is over 300 meters. Its depth is 124 meters. It's like a 40-story skyscraper submerged underwater. If you decide diving to its bottom, you would experience a pressure 13 times greater than atmospheric pressure. From the air, it resembles a pupil, the ocean's giant eye gazing at the sky. But what is it? To answer this question, we must go back in time to the last ice age. 15,000 years ago, sea levels were more than 100 meters lower. What is now the ocean floor was dry land. And the Great Blue Hole wasn't a hole, but a gigantic limestone cave, part of a complex system of underground tunnels. Enormous stalactites hung from its ceiling, and stalagmites grew from its floor. It was a subterranean cathedral created by nature over millions of years. But then the glaciers began to melt. The ocean level rose, the water flooded the cave, and under its weight, the fragile limestone vault collapsed, forming this gigantic karst sinkhole. In 1971, the legendary Jacques-Yves Cousteau brought his ship Calypso here to be the first to explore its mysteries. He called it one of the top 10 dive sites in the world and mapped its underwater topography. What he and his team discovered confirmed the theory about its origin. At a depth of several tens of meters, they found giant stalactites up to 12 meters long hanging from the ledges. But stalactites can only form in the air. This was irrefutable proof that this hole was once a dry cave. Today, the Great Blue Hole is a mecca for divers. But this dive is not for the faint of heart. The first 30 meters are a world teeming with life. Corals, tropical fish, Caribbean reef sharks. But deeper down, as the sunlight fades, life disappears. The walls of the hole become bare and smooth. The water is crystal clear, but utterly lifeless. At a depth of about 90 meters, a layer of hydrogen sulfide begins. It is a toxic, murky layer that, like a blanket, covers the bottom of the hole, isolating it from oxygen. Below this layer, there is no life. It is a dead realm. At the bottom, in eternal darkness, lie only the limestone debris and the skeletons of unsuspecting animals that fell into this trap. The Great Blue Hole ranks 9th because it is a monument to the great climactic changes our planet has undergone. It is a time machine that allows divers to literally touch the world of the Ice Age. And it is a terrifying reminder that beneath the bright, bustling surface of life, a cold, lifeless abyss often lurks. From the wonders of nature, we move on to the monuments of human obsession, and there is no more impressive monument to greed than the Big Hole in Kimberley, South Africa. It is the world's largest hand-dug diamond pit, created without the use of any machinery, a hole that unleashed the global diamond rush and created one of the most powerful and controversial corporations in history, the Beers. It all began in 1871. On an unremarkable hill owned by the Beers brothers, a group of prospectors found several diamonds. The rumors spread like wildfire. Within a few months, 50,000 people from all over the world flocked to this place, armed only with picks, shovels, and the hope of getting rich quick. Chaos ensued. The hill became a gigantic anthill. Each prospector was given a tiny plot of land, 30 by 30 feet. They dug and dug and dug, sinking deeper and deeper. To haul the rock out, a web of thousands of ropes was strung across the pit. The scene was apocalyptic. Working conditions were hellish. People died from cave-ins, accidents, and lack of hygiene under the scorching African sun. But they kept finding diamonds, and that drove people mad. Gradually, the chaos of the small plots gave way to order. Ambitious and ruthless businessmen like Cecil Rhodes began buying up plots, consolidating them into large companies. Eventually, after several years of fierce competition, almost the entire mine was in the hands of a single company, the Beers Consolidated Mines, which for the next 100 years would become a near-total monopoly in the world diamond market. By 1914, when mining stopped, the Great Hole had reached a monstrous size. 50,000 people over 43 years dug a pit almost half a kilometer in diameter and 240 meters deep. They extracted 22.5 million tons of rock and found 3 tons of diamonds in it, almost 15 million carats. Among them were stones as famous as the Star of South Africa and the Beers Giant. After the mine closed, it began to fill with groundwater, becoming a surreal turquoise lake. Today, it is a tourist attraction, an open-air museum. Pouring into a surreal turquoise lake, it is now a tourist attraction, an open-air museum. But looking at this gigantic artificial wound in the Earth's body, it's impossible not to think about the price paid for it, about the thousands of anonymous lives that perished in this pit for some shiny stones, about how this hole gave rise to the apartheid system based on the cruelest exploitation of the black population. The Kimberley Hole is not just a geological feature. It is a scar on the conscience of humanity, and that is why it ranks 8th on our list. We return once more to natural anomalies, but this time to a place where science, until recently, bowed to primal terror and ancient myths. We are in eastern Yemen, in the desert province of Al-Mahra. Here, in the middle of a lifeless, rocky plateau, lies a perfectly circular hole, 30 meters in diameter. The locals call it Bir Barhout, the Well of Barhout, but it has another much more well-known name, the Well of Hell. For centuries, this hole has been the source of the darkest legends. It was said to have been created by genies as a prison for rebellious demons, that at night the groans and screams of damned souls emanated from it, that the repulsive, cadaverous smell that wafted from it was the breath of hell itself. People avoided this place for centuries, fearing even to approach its edge. It was believed that the well absorbed everything that came near it, and that anyone who descended would never return. Even scientists, for a long time, couldn't solve its mystery. The depth of the shaft was unknown. Due to the lack of oxygen and poisonous gases, no expedition could reach the bottom. All attempts failed. The pit of hell remained one of the last great mysteries of our planet. And then, in September 2021, a breakthrough occurred. A team of 10 cavers from Oman, brave to the point of recklessness, decided to do what no one had dared. Using the most modern climbing and breathing equipment, they began their descent into hell. The whole world, holding its breath, followed their expedition. What would they find at the bottom? Demons? A gateway to another world? The reality turned out to be both less mystical and no less surprising. The team successfully reached the bottom, which turned out to be 112 meters deep. They found neither demons nor gateways to hell, but they found a lost world. The bottom of the pit wasn't covered in sulfur and ash, but in cave formations of astonishing beauty. Giant stalagmites, some up to 9 meters high, shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. Cave pearls, perfectly round spheres of calcite formed by dripping water. And a whole system of subterranean waterfalls created a deafening roar. And what about the smell? It really existed, and it was truly repulsive. But its source wasn't demons, but the decomposing carcasses of birds and other animals that fell into this natural trap and couldn't escape. And the screams? They were the sound of the waterfalls, amplified many times over by the acoustics of the giant cave. The expedition of speleologists, or manies, debunked the ancient myth. They proved that the pit of hell is not a supernatural object, but a unique geological phenomenon, a gigantic karst sinkhole created by water over millions of years. But its discovery didn't make the place any less impressive. On the contrary, it showed us that reality can sometimes be far stranger and more beautiful than our wildest fantasies. The Well of Hell ranks 7th because it's the perfect story of scientific curiosity triumphing over primal fear, of how the light of a flashlight can dispel the darkness not only in a cave, but also in the human consciousness. From ancient legends, we move to modern nightmares, to a hole that appeared before our eyes and is an ominous harbinger of future catastrophes. Year 2014, Siberia, Yamal Peninsula. Helicopter pilots flying over the tundra observed something incredible from the air. In the permafrost, where until yesterday there was flat land, a giant, perfectly circular hole opens up, a crater about 30 meters in diameter and more than 70 meters deep. Around it, as if from an explosion, chunks of earth and ice are scattered. The news spreads around the world instantly. Photos and videos of this Siberian apocalypse unleash a whirlwind of outlandish theories, a meteorite impact, a test of a new secret weapon, the work of extraterrestrials. Scientists arriving at the site dismiss these explanations. There are no traces of an impact or radiation. It's something else, something that didn't come from space, but from beneath the earth. The scientific investigation begins. Scientists, risking their lives, descend into the crater. They take samples of ice, soil, and air, and little by little, the picture becomes clearer. The most likely cause of this geological explosion is methane. The Siberian permafrost is a gigantic reservoir where billions of tons of this greenhouse gas are stored. It is found there in the form of so-called gas hydrates, compounds of gas and ice. While permafrost is stable, it remains in a solid state. But in recent decades, the Arctic has been warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. The permafrost is beginning to melt. And this is likely what happened. Deep within the Earth, beneath a layer of permafrost, a pocket of natural gas accumulated. Global warming weakened the ice cap containing it. The pressure built up to a critical point, and then the explosion occurred. The gas, like a champagne cork popping, burst to the surface, hurling thousands of tons of rock into the air. Since the discovery of the first crater in 2014, dozens of similar craters have been found in Siberia. Some of them are gigantic in size. This is not a local phenomenon. It is a symptom of a global illness. The permafrost, which we thought was eternal, is melting, and it is releasing methane, a greenhouse gas 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide. This sets in motion a vicious cycle. Global warming causes permafrost to melt. The melting releases methane. Methane intensifies the greenhouse effect, leading to further warming. The Yamal craters are the visible scars of this process. They are the valves through which our planet releases excess pressure, and each of these vents brings us closer to climate catastrophe. This particular crater, born of global warming, ranks 6th because it doesn't look to the past, but to the future, and the future it reveals seems very worrying. There are craters that impress with their depth, others that frighten with their mystery. And then there's the Mir crater in Yakutia. It impresses with its scale and power. It's an artificial crater, so enormous that it creates its own climate. And according to rumors, it's capable of sucking in helicopters. The city of Mirny, Yakutia, is one of the coldest places on the planet, where winter temperatures plummet to minus 50 degrees Celsius. It was here, in 1955, that geologists discovered the Mir kimberlite pipe, a gigantic diamond deposit. In permafrost conditions, completely isolated from the rest of the world, the Soviet Union began construction on one of the most ambitious mining projects in history. For 44 years, from 1957 to 2001, open-pit mining took place here. Giant excavators and dump trucks ripped away the earth layer by layer, spiraling ever deeper. In the end, they created a breathtaking funnel. The diameter of the pit is 1.2 kilometers, the depth 500 meters. The Ostankino Tower could fit entirely inside this hole. It is the second largest artificial crater in the world after Bingham Canyon in the United States. But its uniqueness lies not only in its size. The Mir mine is a gigantic temperature anomaly. The walls of the quarry, heated by the sun, create updrafts of hot air, while the cooler air from the surface descends. This temperature difference creates strong turbulence and vortex flows above the quarry. This is why the airspace above the mine, Mir, is officially closed to helicopters. There is a persistent legend that several helicopters were literally pulled into this funnel-shaped pit. Although there is no documentary confirmation of these incidents, the mere fact of the flight ban speaks to the seriousness of the threat. During the years of operation, diamonds worth, according to various estimates, at least $17 billion were extracted from this pit. It not only gave the country precious stones, but also an entire city, built from scratch in the permafrost. Open-pit mining ceased in 2001, and today diamonds are extracted from underground mines beneath the quarry floor. And the gigantic funnel is slowly filling with water, threatening to one day become a vast, deep, and dangerous lake. The Mir mine is not just a hole, it is a monument to Soviet gigantomania. It is a scar on the face of Siberia, visible from space, and it is tangible proof that humankind, in its search for treasure, is capable of creating objects that begin to live a life of their own and influence nature itself. We descend ever deeper. We leave the surface and enter a world without light, where eternal silence reigns and where every step could be the last. We are heading to the Beryovkina cave in Abkhazia, the deepest known cave on the planet. It is not just a hole, it is a vertical labyrinth that plunges 2,223 meters into the earth, more than 2 kilometers of vertical descent into the underworld. The entrance to the cave is an inconspicuous crevice in the Arabian Mountains at an altitude of 2,300 meters. For decades, cavers from around the world have assaulted this abyss, advancing inch by inch into the depths. An expedition to the Kabaryovkina cave is no tourist excursion. It's a grueling, multi-day epic that demands the utmost professionalism and nerves of steel. The descent to the bottom takes about 4 days, the ascent another 3 or 4. During all this time, the speleologists live underground in complete darkness, in conditions of 100% humidity and freezing temperatures. They descend with ropes through endless shafts, crawl through narrow cracks flooded with icy water, the siphons. They camp in underground camps, set up on tiny ledges above the abyss. But the main danger here isn't the height or the narrowness, it's the water. The cave is a gigantic drainage system. Any heavy rain on the surface can turn dry shafts into roaring waterfalls in a matter of hours, cutting off the exit and flooding the lower levels. In 2018, a team of speleologists who had reached the bottom became trapped in one of these sinkholes. The flood caught them at a depth of over 2 kilometers. They miraculously survived, waiting for the floodwaters to recede in one of the side galleries. What lies down there? At a depth of over 2 kilometers, speleologists discovered an entire lost world. Underground rivers, lakes, gigantic chambers decorated with strange speleothem formations, and, most importantly, life. In total darkness, under colossal pressure, unique and endemic species of living organisms inhabit this place. Tiny, blind, and unpigmented creatures perfectly adapted to this extreme environment. Kabaryovkina Cave is the last frontier of our planet. It is one of the few places where a major geographical discovery can still be made simply by turning an unfamiliar corner. Every meter traveled into the depths rewrites the maps of the subterranean world. It ranks fourth because it is not only the deepest cave, it is a symbol of humanity's thirst for knowledge, for overcoming its own limits. It is a journey not only to the depths of the planet, but to the depths of ourselves. We return once again to man-made giants, and this time to the largest of them all, the Bingham Canyon open pit mine in Utah, USA. If the Muir Mine is a scar, Bingham Canyon is a gaping wound on the body of North America. It is the largest man-made pit in the world. Its dimensions defy imagination. Diameter, 4 kilometers. Depth, 1.2 kilometers. It is so large that it can be easily seen from the International Space Station. If the 2 tallest buildings in the world, the Burj Khalifa, were placed at its bottom, one on top of the other, they would not reach the edge of the mine. Extraction here began in 1906 and does not stop for a single day. It is a gigantic, functioning machine. 2,000 workers and hundreds of colossal dump trucks, each capable of hauling 300 tons of rock, gnaw at the mountain 24 hours a day, turning it into an abyss. Every day, 450,000 tons of ore are extracted. In its more than 100-year history, the mine has produced more copper than any other mine in history, over 19 million tons. This metal alone could be used to make cables that would wrap around the Earth at the equator several thousand times. In addition to copper, gold, silver, and molybdenum are also extracted here. It is one of the most productive mines on the planet. But this gigantism has its dark side. The mine is a constantly changing and unstable geological structure. In 2013, one of the largest landslides in history, unrelated to volcanic activity, occurred here. 2 gigantic sections of the mine's north wall collapsed. 65 million cubic meters of rock plummeted to the bottom at a speed of over 150 kilometers per hour. The force of the landslide was such that seismographs recorded a magnitude 2.4 earthquake. Fortunately, thanks to a radar monitoring system that detected the ground movements in advance, all the workers were evacuated in time. No one died. But the landslide caused colossal damage, burying some of the equipment and halting mining for several months. Bingham Canyon is the quintessential example of industrial civilization. It is a symbol of our capacity to alter the planet's landscape on unimaginable scales. But it is also a symbol of our vulnerability to the forces of nature that we ourselves unleashed. This giant hole, dug for the sake of our comfort and progress, ranks third because it is the most honest mirror in which humanity can see itself. A mirror that reflects both our greatness and our recklessness. We have descended into the deepest caves and quarries. But all of this is merely scratching the surface. To find the deepest natural hole on the planet, we must go to the ocean. To the western Pacific Ocean, south of Japan. Here lies the Mariana Trench, and in its southern part, a point that marks the pole of inaccessibility for humanity, the Challenger Deep. 10,994 meters below sea level, almost 11 kilometers vertically downward. If you placed Mount Everest at its bottom, its summit would still be covered by 2 kilometers of water. The pressure here reaches 1,100 atmospheres. It's like putting 100 elephants on your thumbnail. Sunlight has never reached here. The water temperature is just above freezing. It is a world of eternal darkness, cold, and monstrous pressure. A world more hostile to humankind than outer space. For most of human history, this place was as unreachable as the surface of Mars. The first to peer into this abyss were the members of the British scientific expedition aboard the Corvette Challenger in 1875. They lowered a sounding line to the bottom and measured a depth of 8,184 meters. Even then, it was clear they had found the deepest place on Earth. But the first people to see this abyss with their own eyes were the Swiss oceanographer Jacques Piccard and U.S. Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh. In 1960, in the bathyscaphe Trieste, they made a dive that still seems suicidal today. Their small, thick-walled sphere descended slowly in the darkness for 5 hours. The hull creaked on the outside, unable to withstand the pressure. At a depth of 9 kilometers, one of the outer panes of the porthole cracked. But they continued their descent and reached the bottom. They spent 20 minutes there, becoming the first, and for a long time, the only people to have been to the bottom of the world. What they saw in the projector's light, a muddy bottom and a small, flat fish, similar to a flounder, revolutionized biologists' ideas about life. It turned out that even in such extreme conditions, complex organisms could exist. The next to dare this journey was film director James Cameron. In 2012, alone in the specially built bathyscaphe Dipsy Challenger, he repeated Piccard and Walsh's feat. He spent 3 hours at the bottom, filming and collecting samples. The Mariana Trench is not just a geological feature. It is the final frontier. It is a place where the laws of our world are pushed to their limits. By studying the life that exists here, we can understand how life can arise and survive on other, even more extreme worlds, on the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The Mariana Trench ranks second, not because it is the deepest, but because it is a challenge that humanity has thrown into the abyss. And the abyss, albeit reluctantly, has begun to reveal its secrets to us. We have reached the top of our ranking, and here, in first place, there is no natural anomaly, no giant quarry, nor the deepest cave. Here is a creation of human hands, a hole without parallel, a hole deeper than the Mariana Trench, a hole that gave rise to one of the most terrifying legends of the 20th century. It is the Kola Superdeep Borehole. Late 1960s, the Cold War at its height, the United States and the Soviet Union compete not only in space, but also in a race to the Earth's core. The Americans launch Project Moholy, an attempt to drill through the Earth's crust beneath the ocean floor. The Soviet Union responds in grand style. In 1970, on the Kola Peninsula, beyond the Arctic Circle, drilling begins on the SG-3 borehole. The goal is not oil or gas extraction. The goal is pure science, to pierce the granite shield and peer into the planet's upper mantle, to discover what the Earth beneath our feet is truly made of. For 22 years, Soviet scientists and engineers waged this epic battle against the Earth's depths. They created unique drilling technologies unparalleled in the world. The Uralmash Linz Mill drilling platform resembled a small factory. They didn't drill continuously, but intermittently, bringing rock cores to the surface, every meter of which was invaluable to science. And what they discovered revolutionized many geological theories. At depths where, according to calculations, there should have been basalt, they were still encountering granite. They discovered water at a depth of 6 kilometers, where, according to all theories, there shouldn't have been any. They found microscopic fossils of plankton at a depth of more than 6,700 meters, proving that life on Earth arose 1.5 billion years earlier than previously thought. They discovered that at a depth of 10 kilometers, the temperature reaches 180 degrees Celsius, almost double what models predicted. It was this temperature that ultimately became the main obstacle. The drill bits couldn't withstand it and melted. In 1989, the well reached its maximum depth of 12,262 meters. 12 kilometers and 262 meters. It's an absolute world record that hasn't been surpassed to this day. But it was at this moment, at the height of its triumph, that the project gave rise to its darkest legend. An article appeared in Finnish and then American newspapers recounting that Soviet scientists, upon reaching a depth of 12 kilometers, lowered a microphone into the well and recorded sounds. And what they heard wasn't the murmur of geological processes, but screams. Thousands, millions of human voices screaming in pain. The scientists, supposedly, had drilled into hell. This story, supported by an audio recording of dubious quality, instantly became a global sensation. It was reproduced by tabloids around the world. It was discussed in churches. Of course, it was a hoax. The scientists who worked on the shaft debunked this legend many times. They didn't lower any microphones. At that temperature and pressure, any microphone would have melted instantly. And the audio recording itself, as was later discovered, was simply the processed soundtrack from an old horror movie. But why did this legend prove so persistent? Why did the world believe it so readily? Because the tailing superdeep shaft isn't just a scientific project. It's an incursion into a forbidden zone. It's humanity's attempt to penetrate where, in the opinion of many, it doesn't belong. The subterranean realm, which in mythologies around the world is associated with hell, with the world of the dead. This hole, reaching into the unknown, became the perfect screen for projecting our primal fears. In 1992, after the dissolution of URAS, funding stopped and the project was frozen. Today, the tailing superdeep shaft is a complex of abandoned, rusting buildings in the middle of the tundra. And the well itself, that road to nowhere, is simply sealed with a thick metal lid. But it continues to ignite the imagination. It's the undisputed champion of our ranking. Not only because it's the deepest, but because it's a symbol of human audacity, a symbol of our yearning to look beyond the edge. And, at the same time, a symbol of how easily this yearning can breed the darkest and most irrational fears. And after this, how can one walk peacefully on Earth without thinking that just 12 kilometers below our feet lies a world about which we still know almost nothing? Thank you so much to everyone who watched this episode to the end. Your support with a like and a subscription is crucial for us. And don't forget to click the bell icon to stay up to date with the latest news and never miss our new videos.